Hi, today we are going to talk about antineoplastic agent, which is anti-cancer drug. So you might be very familiar with this normal cell cycle. You might have learned it during a biochemistry lecture or anatomy lecture. So most of the cells are actually in the resting phase. When you have organ or tissue damage, some of the cell will escape the resting phase and enter into the cell division phase. So you'll go through G1, S phase, which is the synthesis phase, where a lot of DNA and also protein needed for replications are synthesized in this phase. G2 phase, which is the cell's checkpoint, where you ensure that all the conditions for cell division is fulfilled. Then you enter mitosis, whereby your chromosomes are aligned, and cytokinesis, whereby the cell is divided. When this normal cell cycle is disrupted, there's a chance that cancer will occur. So what is the hallmark of cancer? Cancer is actually like a monster. I'm sure that you have played a video game, right? So cancer is like a monster with several characteristics, and we harness this characteristic to beat the monster. So some of the hallmark of cancer are resistant to a cell death. So cancer cells are not willing to die. There's a reduced rate of apoptosis, which is a programmed cell death for damaged cells. It resists proliferation control and has a very high rate of replications. For solid tumor, it can form new blood vessels to supply itself with nutrients. It can spread to other organ and tissues through a process called metastasis. And can resist anti-growth signals, which is due to mutations of tumor suppressor genes and cell sufficiency in growth signals. So it doesn't rely on the external stimuli to grow and replicate. So this is a hallmark of monster that we call cancer. So how do we defeat it? So we use antineoplastic agent that target this characteristic to beat cancer. So what are the medical use of antineoplastic agent? Firstly, it can act as a primary induction therapy used in advanced cancer without any other treatment. It will relieve the symptom of cancer, increase quality of life, and suppress tumor progressions. So this is used when you have no other means to treat the cancer. The cancer cannot be removed through surgical means or cannot be removed through radiotherapy. Sometimes it is used as neoadjuvant therapy, which is used given before other treatment to shrink the tumor. Okay, for example, you want to remove the cancer using surgery, but you want to shrink the tumor first. So you give anti-cancer to the patients to shrink the tumor. It is used in localized cancer whereby surgery and radiotherapy are not enough, and used in combination of therapy to achieve optimal effect. Sometimes antineoplastic agents are used concurrently with other treatment, for example surgery and radiotherapy, to reduce the recurrence of the cancer and increase the survival of the patients. So these are some of the important principles in cancer chemotherapy. You have to remember that antineoplastic agents kill the cancer by first order kinetics. Do you still remember what's first order kinetics from memory receptor lecture? So you forgot, let me remind you. It means that a constant proportions or percentage of cells are being killed in each cycle instead of constant number of cells being killed. In cancer chemotherapy, usually we use a combination of drugs, for example 2 to 6 agents, and it's called a regime. We are going to go into why we use a combination of drugs later. And these drugs are given intermittently or in pulses and at tolerable doses to achieve total tumor cell kill. It is done over several cycles, for example 6 months or longer, with resting phase in between to allow normal cell to recover. However, you have to remember that it's not just normal cell who will regrow during this resting phase. The tumor cell will also regrow. And the earlier you start treatment, the better outcome is. So this curve represents a cycle of chemotherapeutic agent. So for the red line, this shows the progression of cancer when the patient is not treated, eventually to death in patients. In the dark blue line, you can see that the chemotherapeutic agent it started very late. Okay, it only started when the symptoms of the patients shown, and the frequency of dosing is not very frequent, and the dose used might not be sufficient because you can see that the rate of growth actually surpass the rate of kill of the cell. So eventually, the tumor continue to grow and eventually kill the patients, although the survival of the patients prolonged. In the light blue curve, you can see that the anti-cancer drug are initiated very close to diagnosis, immediately after diagnosis. And the dosing interval is very frequent, and the dose used is enough. So the rate of kill surpass the rate of growth of cancer during resting phase. And eventually, all the cancer cells are killed. You remember that in order to achieve optimum cell kill, 2 log dose kill is required so that the kill rate is more than the growth rate. In the third line, the green line, you can see that the cancer therapeutic is initiated after a surgery resection of tumor. Okay, so upon diagnosis, the tumor is resect. Okay, the tumor is removed, and the physician started chemotherapeutic agent, and the frequency is very frequent, and the dose is enough. So eventually, the remaining tumor shrink and the remaining cancer cell die with time, and the patient heal faster compared to a patient who relies solely on the anti-cancer treatment, which is the blue line. In terms of classification, antineoplastic agents can be classified into cell cycle non-specific agents and cell cycle specific agents. Example of cell cycle non-specific agent include alkylating agent, platinum analog. These two agents can damage the DNA of the cancer cell. Hormones or anti-hormones actually, who suppress the growth of the cancer cell, and anti-tumor antibiotic, which kill the cancer cell through various means. We also have cell cycle specific agents, which target specific phases of the cell cycle. For example, anti-metabolite, which target the S phase, which actually target the DNA synthesis of the cell. Topoisomerase inhibitor, for example, etoposide, which can prevent the supercoiling of DNA. Taxane and also vinca alkaloid, which target the mitosis phase. They actually affect the formations of microtubule, which pull the chromosome apart. And some of the anti-tumor antibiotics target also the S phase synthesis phase. They can affect the DNA synthesis or protein synthesis. So this picture depicts where the positions of the anti-cancer drugs in each phase of the cell cycle. So non-specific agent target the cell cycle as a whole, while the other agents target specific phases of the cell cycle, for example S or G2 or during the mitosis. So we are going to go into each of the specific agent one by one. But before that, let me explain drug combinations. Why do we use several agents to treat cancer patients at one time? The rationale is actually to provide maximum cell kill. We hope that this agent will produce synergistic effect and kill the cells, cancer cell more effectively than using a single agent alone. We have to understand that in a solid tumor, for example, the cancer cells are very heterogeneous. That there are different type of cells in the solid tumor, and they are at different rate of cell proliferations. So if we use several agents at the same time, the combination of this therapy will offer a broader range of interactions between drugs and the cancer cell at different phases. But you have to remember that when we use different agents together, they can offer broader range of interactions. They can also offer broader range of side effects as well. And the use of multiple agents can prevent the developing of drug resistance because they rely on different mechanisms of actions. We are going to delve into drug resistance later. So how do we determine the drug that we combine in the regime? So mostly they are developed by trial and errors. We try not to use drugs that have overlapping organ toxicity because you don't want to deepen the organ toxicity until a stage where there's no recover. Okay, so we do not use drugs that share the same organ toxicity. We use drugs that have different mechanisms of actions to provide a broader range of interactions. So we usually combine cell cycle non-specific agent with cell cycle specific agents. Back to the non-overlapping organ toxicity. So we use drugs that do not share the same organ toxicity, but it will increase the range of organ affected, but with lesser toxicity. So more organs might be implicated for the side effect rather than one single organ but very deep toxic effect. Okay. So we combine drug to achieve to improve optimum efficacy. So we combine drug with low efficacy when used alone, hoping to increase the efficacy of the overall regime. In terms of toxicity, the toxicity of constituent drug should not overlap. That should not share the same organ toxicity. Appropriate drug combination will decrease the lethal effect, but unfortunately, it will produce a wide range of side effects affecting multiple organs. The scheduling of the regime must be optimal and consistent. If it is not optimal, the cancer cell might regrow. The range of interactions will be wider, and they should not overlap. Okay, we try to use drug with different mechanisms of actions. So we should have a very deep understanding on the mechanism of actions of the constituent drug to produce optimal effect. And we try to avoid arbitrary dosage change. Okay, we don't want to combine. In order to combine, we lessen the dose of very effective drug. Okay, if we reduce the dose of very effective drug, it might reduce the overall efficacy as well. Okay, so reducing the dosage of effective drug to add a less effective drug might reduce the overall efficacy of the regime. Now we want to talk about drug resistance. Okay, drug resistance can be divided into primary or inherited or acquired. Primary or inherited meaning that the patients have some genetic mutations or genetic polymorphisms. For example, polymorphism of the cytochrome P450 system in their liver, which enable them to catabolize certain drugs more effectively, and this will cause drug resistance. Primary resistance only happens to those who have no previous exposure to the drug. For acquired drug resistance, it is specific to certain drug, and this involves certain expressions of certain genes of the tumor, and the patient must have been exposed to the drug before. These are 6 major mechanisms whereby a drug resistance can develop. Okay, and this is very important for you to remember. Cancer cell can alter or lower the drug uptake and this will reduce the drug toxicity to the cancer cell. They can also lower intracellular drug concentration by increased expression of efflux protein or efflux pump. So they can increase expression of pump called multiple drug resistant protein 1, and they can effectively pump out all the toxic anti-cancer drug. Thirdly, they can alter cell cycle checkpoint and allow more time for the cancer cell to correct the drug-induced damage. It can increase the metabolism of the drug. It can alter drug target, for example, in terms of methotrexate. It can increase the expressions of dihydrofolate reductase in response to methotrexate treatment, because the HFR is actually the target of methotrexate. It can increase the emergency response of genes to repair the DNA damage. Okay, for example, cisplatin can cause DNA damage on the cell. So in cancer cell, it can increase the emergency DNA repair mechanism. For example, increase the expression of CRR1, which is endonuclease 1, to repair the DNA damage. So these 6 drug resistance mechanisms is very important for you to remember. Now we are going to each class of the agent one by one. First, we'll go to a non-cell specific agent, alkylating agent, which can be further divided into 3 subtypes. Okay, bis-chloretyl amine and also nitrosourea, platinum analog, and also non-classical alkylating agents. We'll be focusing only on certain representative agents that you have to remember. But before we go into each of the agents, there are things I need you to remember. The thing that we need you to remember is actually the mechanism of actions of each class of drug. Okay, not really the indications, but because the indications are too many. Okay, so the mechanism of the drug is very important for you to remember. The specific side effect of the drug is very important for you to remember as well. Okay, remember the mechanism of action of each class of drug and remember the specific side effect of drug. There might be some rescue agents specific for the adverse side effect that you need to remember as well. Okay, so only 3 items you really need to remember: mechanism of the drug for each classes, specific side effect for each classes, and also there are some specific rescue agents that can be used to overcome this side effect. So going to our first alkylating agent, first example, cyclophosphamide. It is administered through oral route with high bioavailability. It can also through IV. In terms of pharmacokinetics, cyclophosphamide can be transformed by cytochrome P450 in the liver and cleave by non-enzymatic reactions in the tumor cell to form phosphoramide mustard and also acrolein, which is a toxic metabolite. And this will kill the cancer. So these are the indications of cyclophosphamide. Again, we don't require you to remember all the uses of the drug, but the mechanism of action is more important. These are some adverse side effects of cyclophosphamide, which include myelosuppressions. Okay, so it will cause toxicity to bone marrow cells, increased bleeding. Okay, because of platelets are generated from your bone marrow cells, alopecia, because your hair follicles are rapidly dividing cells, so they are affected by the anti-cancer drugs. And this is a specific side effect that you should remember for cyclophosphamide: hemorrhagic cystitis, which is diffuse inflammation of the bladder leading to dysuria, hematuria, and also hemorrhage. Okay, you can see blood in the urine. This side effect is caused by alkaline, which is a toxic metabolite of cyclophosphamide. It can be prevented by adequate hydrations, and this side effect can be rescued by mesna, which is a drug which binds to and inactivate alkaline. So this picture depicts the mechanism of actions of alkylating agent, which you have to remember. The alkylating agent, cyclophosphamide, transfer alkyl group to the cellular constituents, for example DNA. Specifically, it preferably bind to the N7 site of guanine in your DNA and cause miscoding of DNA. This will subsequently lead to DNA breakage and cell death. Another component of cyclophosphamide can cause gabamylations of lysine residue of proteins, and this will inhibit enzymatic actions and leading to cell death as well. Alkylating agents such as cyclophosphamide can induce several drug resistance through mechanisms such as increased capability of the cancer cell to repair DNA lesions, increase detoxification of the enzyme, and reduce drug transport. Another class of alkylating agent, platinum analog, they usually work synergistically with other alkylating agents, fluoropyrimidines and taxane, to cure cancer. Usually used in solid tumors. Example of drug include cisplatin, carboplatin, and oxaliplatin, which is used when the tumors are resistant to cisplatin and carboplatin. In one example of drug combinations, oxaliplatin are used in combination with 5-fluorouracil and also chlorine to treat metastatic colorectal cancer. So, adverse side effect, carboplatin can cause less renal and GI toxicity than cisplatin. It can also cause neurotoxicity and also myelosuppressions. Then we enter into another class of anti-cancer drug, antimetabolite. Antimetabolite, the major mechanism of action is to interfere with DNA synthesis. Some subclasses include antifolate agent, example methotrexate, fluoropyrimidines, for example fluorouracil, deoxycytidine analog, cytarabines, and also purine analog, for example 6-metacoptolurine. So this picture shows the role of antimetabolite in inhibiting the DNA synthesis. For example, methotrexate inhibit the dihydrofolate reductase, which can inhibit the formation of folate required for DNA synthesis. And 5-fluorouracil target the thymidylate synthase and prevent the formation of thymine, and thereby prevent DNA synthesis. We enter into the first example. We have methotrexate, which is an antifolate, which can be administered through IV, intrathecal, or oral route. It can be administered through oral route, but it is a saturable route. So to a certain degree, it cannot be absorbed anymore. Okay, and the oral route is erratic in terms of bioavailability. Excretion is excreted through the kidney, so you might want to adjust dose for patients with renal dysfunctions, and it can be inhibited by aspirin and say penicillin and also cephalosporins. This is the uses of anti-cancer drug methotrexate. Again, we don't really require you to remember all the indications, but it is sufficient for you to know that it can be used to treat breast cancer, head and neck cancer, esophageal cancer, lymphoma, bladder cancer, and colorectal carcinoma. Mechanism of action is something that you have to remember. Methotrexate can bind to dihydrofolate synthesis, as I mentioned before this, and inhibit the tetrahydrofolate synthesis. Without folate, DNA, RNA, and also protein synthesis cannot occur. Methotrexate can also form methotrexate polyglutamate and inhibit enzymes in purine and also time delayed synthesis. Methotrexate can invoke several drug resistance mechanisms. For example, it can cause cancer cell to reduce drug transport into the cell. Okay, methotrexate can induce the cancer cell to develop reduce drug transport of methotrexate into the cell. The cell can reduce the methotrexate polyglutamate synthesis. The cancer cell can also overexpress difolate reductase to overcome the effect of methotrexate. It can also alter the affinity of dihydrofolate synthesis, dihydrofolate reductase towards methotrexate. In methotrexate treatment, we often use the treatment together with leucovorin, which is also known as folate leucovorin or L-leucovorin, which is antidote to methotrexate. It's basically a folate. Okay, so leucovorin is used in high-dose methotrexate treatment to rescue normal cell, which actually require folate to survive. Okay, it can also reverse the methotrexate overdose. Another example, fluoropyrimidines. We have the example drug 5-fluorouracil, which can be administered through IV with a very short half-life and is catabolized by dihydropyrimidine dehydrogenase. It is used to treat colorectal cancer in combination with a drug that we introduced before and solid tumors. In terms of adverse side effect, it can cause nausea, mucositis, diarrhea, bone marrow suppression or myelosuppression, depression, and neurotoxicity. In terms of mechanism, 5-fluorouracil is actually an inactive parent compound which will be catabolized to form active metabolite. For example, FDUMP, 5-fluorouridine, 5-triphosphate, and also FDUTP. Okay, so FDUMP can actually bind covalently with time delayed synthase, which is the major mechanism of actions, and inhibit DNA synthesis. This is called timeless death. Okay. The other metabolite can also incorporate into DNA and RNA and interfere with RNA processing and mRNA translations, and it also can inhibit DNA synthesis and functions. The last example of this class is a purine antagonist, 6-methacaptopurine, which is used to treat acute myelogenous leukemia. 6-methacaptopurine is an inactive parent compound. It will be activated by xanthine oxidase through oxidation process into monophosphate nucleotide 6-thioinosinic acid, okay, into 6-thiouric acid to inhibit purine synthesis. However, this process, the activation process, can be interfered by allopurinol, which is a drug often prescribed to acute leukemia patients to prevent hyperuricemia. Okay, so allopurinol will inhibit xanthine oxidase, and this will prevent the activations of 6-methacaptopurine into its active metabolites. So this drug interaction is something that you have to remember. So before we advance to other classes of antineoplastic agent, can we just do a minor revisions? Can you briefly describe the mechanism of action of following antineoplastic agent? Cyclophosphamide. Do you still remember which classes of antineoplastic agent cyclophosphamide belongs to? So it is an anti-alkylating agent. It can transfer the alkyl group to DNA, causing DNA miscoding and also DNA breakage. It can also bind to proteins and inactivate enzyme. Methotrexate, it targets and binds to the dihydrofolate reductase, preventing the folate synthesis and thereby preventing DNA synthesis. 5-fluorouracil, it can bind to thymidylate synthase, prevent the production of thymidylate and thereby prevent DNA synthesis. It can also intercalate into the RNA, preventing RNA processing and formations of mRNA. It can also intercalate with the DNA, preventing DNA synthesis. So next question, do you still remember the 6 mechanisms for the development of drug resistance, anti-cancer drug resistance? So for example, there will be decreased uptake of the drug, anti-cancer drug into the anti-cancer cell, in the cancer cell. There will be decreased excretions of the drug out of the cancer cell through flux pump. There will be increased catabolizing and metabolism of drug in the cancer cell. There could be increased emergency repair mechanism that is activated in the cancer cell. There could be outer cell checkpoint to allow the cell to more time to repair the DNA damage or any damage as well. There could be outer cell target. For example, in methotrexate, which target the dihydrofolate reductase, there will be increased expression or affinity of the dihydrofolate reductase towards the methotrexate. So I hope you remember the lecture so far. Okay, so we are going to enter into the next phase or the next example of drugs. The next following examples of anti-cancer drugs are all plant-derived drugs. Okay, the first example is vinca alkaloid. Vinca alkaloid are derived from Vinca rosea. You can look at the picture here. This is a plant that you often encounter in Malaysia. If you remember the logo of Majlis Cancer Negara, the logo is derived from the flower of this plant. Okay? So Vinca alkaloid, some examples are vinblastine and vincristine. They inhibit tubulin polymerization. They inhibit the formations of tubulin or microtubule. Microtubule have a function in pulling the chromosomes of the cell during cell divisions. Okay, this will cause mitotic arrest at the metaphase. Vinblastine is metabolized by P450 in the enzyme in the liver. So those adjustments needed in patients with liver dysfunction patients. They are excreted in the feces. They are used in Hodgkin lymphoma and non-Hodgkin lymphoma, breast cancer, germ cell cancer. Other side effects include myelosuppression, mucositis, and also alopecia, which is actually the shared side effect of many cancer, anti-cancer drug. For vincristine, it is usually used in acute myelogenous leukemia and hematological cancer and pediatric tumor. Some of the adverse side effects include neurotoxicity, and it has a milder myelosuppression effect compared to vinblastine. There's a very important adverse side effect for both vincristine and vinblastine, which is inappropriate secretion of antidiuretic hormone, SIADH syndrome, which is a specific side effect for vincristine and vinblastine. The next example of anti-cancer drug that I'm going to introduce to you is related to this movie, A Monster Call. In this movie, you can see the boy is actually begging this tree master to save his mother who suffered from cancer. And what's the name of this tree? It is actually a yew tree, which can generate or synthesize or produce a class or anti-cancer drug called taxane. So taxane also act on the microtubule, whereby it binds to the microtubule and promote excessive tubulin polymerizations. It actually prevents the microtubule from breaking up. Okay, and this will also inhibit mitosis. The taxane is usually used in solid tumor and age-related Kaposi sarcoma. It is also metabolized by the P450 enzyme, so those adjustments needed for patients with liver dysfunctions. It can also cause some common side effects such as myelosuppression, neuropathy, and also hypersensitivity. So the example of taxane drug is called paclitaxel. So vinca alkaloid and also taxane share the same target actually, which is the microtubule. But the effect on microtubule is very different. Vinca alkaloid prevent the microtubule assembly. And you can try to remember this by the letter V, okay? The letter V for vinca alkaloid branches off, okay? It branches off, that's why it prevents microtubule assembly, okay? Taxane, actually, for taxane, it prevents microtubule disassembly because it is T. T look like two branches joined together. Okay, so taxane prevent microtubule disassembly. Another class of anti-cancer drug is called epipodorfiotoxin, which is derived from the root of mayapple. Okay, example of drugs etoposide, okay, which can be administered through IV or a route, which a bioavailability of around 50%. It is usually excreted in urine, so those adjustments needed in renal dysfunction patients. Etoposide inhibit DNA topoisomerase 2, which manage the supercoiling of DNA. It is usually used in cancer cells such as germ cell, small cell, non-small cell lung cancer, lymphoma, and gastric cancer. So etoposide target the supercoiling of DNA without the supercoiling or the actions of topoisomerase 2. The supercoiled DNA cannot form. Then we have another class of antineoplastic agent, anti-tumor antibiotic, which can inhibit topoisomerase 2. There are many actions. It can inhibit topoisomerase 2. It can block synthesis of DNA RNA by intercalating into the DNA structure. It can act as a free radicals and increase oxidative stress, causing oxidative stress to a tumor. And it can also alter fluidity and transport the membrane of the cancer cell. Okay, so there are many potential mechanisms of action for anti-tumor antibiotics. So we have two example anti-tumor antibiotics here, which are doxorubicin and daunorubicin, which are usually used in hematological cancer. Okay, doxorubicin can be used in solid hematological cancer. They're often used in combination with other drug. And daunorubicin is used in acute myelogenous and also lymphoblastic leukemia, which show no effect in solid cancer. The adverse side effect of anti-tumor antibiotic is a bit special. Okay, apart from the common adverse side effect, for example, myelosuppression, neutropenia, they can cause cardiotoxicity by increasing oxidative stress to the heart. Okay, and this effect can be prevented by dextromethorphan, another drug. Okay, it can also cause another interesting side effect, which we call radiation recall reactions. Okay, this happens when the patients undergo radiation therapy followed by anti-tumor antibiotics therapy. Okay, the administration of anti-tumor antibiotic will cause erythema and also desquamations of the site previously irradiated for cancer therapy. Okay, so a patient undergo radiation therapy first and then take anti-tumor antibiotic. Later on, their previous sites of radiations will show erythema, redness, and also desquamation whereby the skin starts to fall off. Okay, so this interesting side effect. Now we will move on to hormonal antineoplastic agents. This class of agents is used to treat cancer that are sensitive to sex hormones. There used to be a time where we administer opposing hormones to patients with this kind of cancer. For breast cancer, which is sensitive to estrogen, we administer androgens. And for patients with prostate cancer, we administer estrogens. However, you can foresee if we administer the opposing hormones, it will cause systemic effect to the patients. In a man, if we administer estrogens, it will cause gynecomastia, and in a woman, if we administer androgen, it can cause hirsutism. So nowadays, we are using hormone antagonists to treat this kind of patients. In breast cancer, we use anti-estrogens, and in prostate cancer, we use anti-androgens. There are two major classes of hormonal antineoplastic. Firstly, we use hormones, classical hormone, estrogen, androgens, and also the GnRH analog, which are actually GnRH agonists, for example, Liprola and also buserelin. For anti-hormone, for anti-estrogen, we have tamoxifen, which is a partial antagonist. Tamoxifen is actually agonist in certain tissue and antagonist in other tissues. We are going to explain it later. We have fulvestrant, which is a full estrogen receptor antagonist. We have aromatase inhibitor, which actually block the conversions of estrone to estrogens. We also have, for anti-androgen, we have flutamide, which is a full androgen receptor antagonist used to treat prostate cancer. Now we are going to explain to you how buserelin and GnRH agonists work. So as you might be aware, the hypothalamus in our body synthesize GnRH. We stimulate pituitary to secrete gonadotropin hormone, and this will be conveyed to your testes, and it will synthesize androgens. But androgen will stimulate prostate cancer proliferations. Buserelin as a GnRH agonist will stimulate the GnRH receptor on the pituitary, and this excessive stimulation will cause desensitizations of the GnRH receptor and cause downregulations. Due to these downregulations, gonadotropin will no longer be synthesized and be responsive to the stimulus of GnRH. Without gonadotropin, there will be no synthesis of androgens, and without androgens, prostate cancer cell cannot proliferate. So this is used in prostate cancer and also in breast cancer because GnRH and gonadotropin also regulate the synthesis of estrogens. Some adverse side effects include hot flashes, which is like menopause, loss of libido, impotence, in the case of erectile dysfunctions, nasal irritations, and headache if it is administered through nasal route. Anti-androgens, for example, flutamide, is a competitive antagonist of androgen receptor. It can be used to treat prostate cancer in combination with GnRH analogs. Another side effect can cause the loss of libido and sexual dysfunctions, liver toxicity, and gynecomastia, whereby increased estrogen production in testes. Tamoxifen, which I promised to explain to you earlier, is actually a selective estrogen receptor antagonist. It selectively and completely binds to estrogen receptor so that the estrogen cannot bind to it. However, the effect of tamoxifen are actually organ dependent, whereby it is an agonist at the breast and agonist on the bone. So it can be used to treat breast cancer in pre and post menopausal women, and also can be used to act as a chemopreventive agents in high-risk individual. Apart from treating breast cancer, because of its agonist effect on the bone, it can be used to prevent bone loss in this patient as well. Some adverse side effects include hot flashes, similar to menopause, increased risk for thromboembolism, and if this treatment fails, we can use fulvestrant, a pure estrogen receptor antagonist, to treat breast cancer. Now that we are done with all the traditional or classical antineoplastic agents, we'll delve into the non-traditional or newer agents for anti-cancer drug. Most of them are protein, peptide, or antibody. Firstly, we have tyrosine kinase inhibitor, growth factor receptor inhibitor, which I'm going to introduce to you, EGR inhibitor and also EGFR inhibitor, and also there will be L-asparaginase. So the first type, tyrosine kinase inhibitor, for the cancer cell to continue to proliferate non-stop, the tyrosine kinase domain of the BCR-ABL protein need to be stimulated by substrate. However, imatinib can bind with BCR-ABL protein and prevent the binding of the substrate to the tyrosine kinase, thereby preventing the proliferation of tumor cell. Imatinib is administered orally, metabolized by liver, and excreted through the feces. It can be used to treat primary chronic myelogenous leukemia and also GIT stroma tumor. As I explained earlier, imatinib acts by inhibiting tyrosine kinase of BCR-ABL protein and inhibit the phosphorylations of the kinase substrate by ATP. The next one, epidermal growth factor receptor inhibitor. The overexpression of EGFR is actually needed for continuous proliferation of cell, growth, invasion, metastasis, and also angiogenesis of cancer. By having overexpression of EGFR, the cancer cell can increase resistance to death and also decrease the rate of apoptosis. One classical drug, we have cetuximab, which is a monoclonal antibody against EGFR. It is used in combination with irinotecan, which is a topoisomerase inhibitor in metastatic colon cancer. However, this antibodies is only useful in patients expressing KRAS, which is proton cogenes. It is used in the treatment of head and neck cancer. Some of the adverse side effects include acneiform skin rash, hypersensitivity administered through IV, and hypomagnesemia. As I explained earlier, one of the characteristics of cancer is actually formation of new blood vessel in a process called angiogenesis. This angiogenesis process is mediated by vascular endothelial growth factor. We can inhibit vascular endothelial growth factor using a decoy receptor antibody of VEGF and also inhibitor of VEGF that prevents binding of VEGF with its tyrosine kinase. The example of drug bevacizumab is actually a humanized monoclonal antibody which prevent the interactions of VEGF with VEGF receptor. It is used in combination with 5-fluorouracil, irinotecan, oxaliplatin in metastatic or colorectal cancer, and it does not increase the toxicity of chemotherapy. However, it has several side effects including hypotension, thromboembolic event, delay wound healing, and also GI operations. In cancer cells, they cannot synthesize their own L-asparagine, which is substrate to synthesize aspartic acid and used in protein synthesis. So cancer cells need to obtain their L-asparagine from outside the cell, in the circulation for example. The use of asparaginase, however, degrade the exogenous L-asparagine so that the cancer cell cannot obtain adequate amount of this asparagine, so that they cannot form aspartic acid and also form protein. So asparaginase is actually used to treat acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Some of the side effects include fever, chill, nausea, vomiting, skin rash, urticaria. It can also cause hypertension and respiratory failure, altered clothing practice, pancreatitis, and also neurological toxicity. So we have covered all the anti-cancer drugs, classical and non-classical, and their mechanism of actions can be summarized in this chart. So the cell metabolisms, purine, and also pyrimidine synthesis. The purine synthesis can be antagonized using anti-metabolite. When purine is formed, it's ready to transform into DNA. We can use activating agents to bind with the DNA to induce breakage and fermentations. When DNA is ready to form a supercoil, we can use etoposide to prevent the supercoiling of DNA. When it's translated into protein, we can use L-asparaginase to prevent the cancer from getting enough protein to form aspartic acid and to use it for further protein synthesis. In the mitotic process, the chromatin need to be pulled by the microtubule, so we can use vinca alkaloid and taxane to prevent the formations or the breakage of the microtubule. And these are the positions of each of the anti-cancer drug in the cell cycle. I know it's a lot to remember, okay? But just remember the three things I asked you at the beginning of this lecture: the mechanism of actions of the drugs, the specific side effect of each class of drug, and if there's a rescue agents, you have to remember it. So to summarize, cancer cells show reduced rate of apoptosis, and we can prevent this by using any kind of cancer drug actually. And it have increased rate of proliferations, and we can inhibit this using cell cycle specific agents. It can form new blood vessels, sustain cell, so we can use VEGF inhibitor. It is resistant to growth control, so we can use EGFR inhibitor. It is sufficient in growth signals, so we use tyrosine kinase inhibitor and EGFR inhibitor to stop this growth signal. And by preventing all this, we can stop the spread of tumor to other organs. So by using all these cancer drugs, we hope that we can stop the spread of cancer and cause a game over to the cancer. Okay. So thank you for your patience in listening to this lecture. If you have any comments or you have any question, please leave it in the comment sections. I will try to address it one by one. Thank you.